Folks, we're going to begin our meeting. Can we have approval of today's agenda?
I so moved.
Thank you, thank you. How about the minutes? Any corrections, additions?
Make a motion to approve.
Is there a second? Terrific. All right, we will get into the chair's report.
Does anybody need the chair's report? We sent that out this morning, but we're happy to.
It was quite an eventful few days. Many events have transpired since we last met. The largest capital plan has been approved. I'm sure you've all heard that, including the next 70 stations that will be made accessible. Fare evasion discussions are ongoing. The possibility of service reductions still looms. We will hear more about that when the November financial plan is revealed in November. Fare evasion, I said is going on. The MTA reorganization is going forward. We are awaiting the selection of a chief transformation officer and a chief operating officer and several other positions. Those two are the most important at the moment.
Don't forget that Ronnie is.
Yeah, and I'm sure everybody has heard that Ronnie Haycom will be leaving in November. So we will see if there will be a replacement managing director or if that position will be folded into another. First, yes, Trudy.
Appropriate today to bring up about doing something, or at least writing a letter about Ronnie Haycom.
New business.
Would it be new business,
Yeah.
old business? Okay, then I will bring it up then. I just
Okay.
wanted to know when was the right time to do it. Thank you.
Sure. First, I would like to start on a positive note, which is always nice to do, and report that subway on-time performance is continuing to improve. It keeps ratcheting up every month. From August 2018 to August 2019, it climbed from 68% to now 84%, which is pretty amazing improvement. And people actually come up to me that know I'm involved in all this and say, you know, I have noticed the subways have gotten better. And for people to just come up to me, I think something is definitely happening. And I think it's the Save Safe Seconds campaign gets trains out of stations more quickly, and when you amplify that from all the stations on a line, the trains do seem to be coming more frequently and more regularly. So that's a good thing. Clearly, there's a lot left to be done. Additionally, subway major incidents, which affect 50 or more trains, decreased by 39% from 62 down to 38 for the same time period. This is all great stuff. We hope this continues, but if service cuts are in the future, we don't know how you will maintain these kinds of great stats. In addition, I'm sure everybody heard about a pretty terrible reason for delays. In this case, it was the number 4 line. Somebody took their young daughter and tried to commit suicide. Fortunately, he did. The daughter survived thanks to selfless New Yorkers who went out on the tracks, signaled the train to stop, and convinced the child to crawl out to them. So, you know, New Yorkers are great. We always knew this, but it's events like these that really amplify and bring it to light.
Somebody stole one of the guy's bags while he was on the job.
Ugh. Well, so there's good and bad. We will continue to call for absolutely no service cuts, especially as congestion pricing is on the horizon and the region's commuters will need to have attractive and sufficient service to get them out of their cars. You may have seen my quote that I stated yesterday at the meetings. We're going to have, now that the capital plan is approved, we're going to have state-of-the-art signals, state-of-the-art rolling stock, going to have many more accessible stations, but you're going to have to wait a lot longer for a train. Something is definitely wrong with that picture. We need a dedicated fund for operating, and I stated that yesterday.
And we also got the op-ed.
Yes, yeah. And we've sent that around, haven't we?
Yes.
Yeah. While congestion pricing will bring a sustainable funding source for capital, no similar dedicated revenue source exists for operating, and we're continuing to call for very minimal increases in things like the gas tax, along with other options the PCAC's funding tool identifies. If the service isn't there, the riders won't come, and we don't need another cycle of death like we had after June 27th of 2010, the worst service cuts in the MTA's history. As you all know, the new 2020 to 2024 capital program was approved by the board yesterday with a proposed price tag of $54 billion, $51.5 billion of which is for transit, the LIRR, and Metro North. It is the biggest and most ambitious plan to date. We have been calling for a more robust plan for years, and we're very pleased with what the plan includes. At the same time, there's many questions and many unknowns, such as whether the city, state, and federal funds will materialize. The mayor has put certain conditions on whether and when he will approve the city's portion of those funds, the whereabouts of the 20-year needs assessment, how the forensic audit and the MTA reorg will affect the capital plan. Also, with this ambitious a plan, will the work get accomplished on time and on budget? What happens if some of these contractors are late? Does that mean they're up for debarment? Will contractors want to work with the MTA, or will they choose not to bid, which will further increase the cost to the MTA? When you have less bidders, obviously the costs go up. There's also a question about whether some additional items will get put into this capital plan. Susan Metzger, the Orange County representative yesterday, spoke about there is no mid-yard on the Port Jervis line, which has long been promised. There are improvements to the Suffern station in Rockland that must be done. In fact, many are calling for the Suffern station to be turned over to New York State. We understand why it's run by New Jersey Transit. It's the terminus for a lot of their trains, but it is technically in New York State, and we should be controlling it. And so there's a lot of things yet to be worked out. The chairman, Pat Foy, assured Dr. Metzger that he would try to put in this yard in Middletown or just outside Middletown so that Port Jervis line could get additional service. And we will see how all that works out. The capital plan includes $5.5 billion for 70 accessible subway stations. 48 have been identified, 22 to be determined, the largest investment in accessibility to date. This is a pillar of Fast Forward, and we're pleased with the scope of the list, but agree that more can and should be done. And I understand the Stantec organization is still in the process of surveying some stations, but it will all be done by the end of this calendar year. And we will get that list and see how they are all rated. They are rated yellow, red, or green, depending on how easy or how difficult it would be. Political considerations are not considered in the red, yellow, or green. It's just whether they can be put in and whether there's room for them. And by the way, since Andy Byford's promise of when it was 50, you'll only be 2 stations at max away from an accessible station. Now that there will be 70, that number might come down to just 1 away in many cases.
Well, it's also for Long Island Railroad and Metro North.
Yeah, many of which have been identified. Elevators in working order have remained virtually unchanged since last year. There's approximately 95% of them in service. That doesn't help you if one is out. They were out at Bowling Green yesterday here, which a lot of folks coming to the board meeting had a lot to say about. You would think that the station that's across from the MTA headquarters would, and I did ask Sally Labrera if an elevator or escalator goes out, is a message in real time, an electronic message sent, and she said they are. So they know immediately when one is out. Yes, Chris?
Since you brought up an issue, and I did bring it to Debbie Morris already this morning, it depends if there's an outage completely, because Kings Highway on the Manhattan side, elevator 760, was completely dead. No out of service sign. If I didn't let the management know, and he responded to me like a faster than a heartbeat, and he really was upset because the ticket booth was supposed to put a sign there. So there were times, yes, it does give you an email to warn you that elevator is out, and does explain a little betterly, but when it's completely nothing, no power is in that elevator, it's not going to alert anything. So there's something that needs to be adjusted on, for the record.
Okay. Yes.
We always talk about elevators, but there is a situation with escalators, which people like me
Oh,
do
I
not-
mentioned escalators.
Yeah, but you mentioned it. But what I had brought this up before, maybe you can bring it up again, especially at a station like Grand Central, which really needs, when it is easier, if an escalator is going to go out, it's easier to walk down than to
Absolutely.
walk up. You would think that that's a logical thing.
Absolutely.
However, and I have brought this over and over and over again,
Matt, please let her finish. Please let her finish her.
I even go to the what I still call the token booth or whatever, and
The
I see
booth.
it. And their answer is you have to get somebody from maintenance, or it's not my job kind of thing. Can there be some kind of a directive or something that says when
When an escalator, when there's
yeah,
only one
but
operating
especially
escalator, it should be in the up
that it should
position.
be, the one that's working should always be in the up position. Can you please, I don't know how whether
We'll communicate
or
that. I
do
can't
we-
believe they
do we
don't.
send, no, Andrew, that's why I'm bringing it up now, because I have brought it up
I'll
before.
make that
Others
message
have.
known.
So I don't know if we have to send them a letter or a something
do that.
or whatever. That's why I am
communicate with
putting it on the
subways all the time.
record. But whenever the escalators go out, the one that should be working,
Should be up.
and it should be switched as soon as it's reported.
I will get that message out, Trudy.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Okay. So, something that's not done so well are city bus speeds. They've remained unchanged from a year ago, averaging 8 miles an hour. Your average rate of walking is 4 miles an hour, so that's not really great. There's a big need for bus lane enforcement. The good news is that enforcement will begin on October 7th on the M15, with violators getting a warning for the first 60 days and then fines starting at $50, ramping up to $250 for repetitive violations. First and Second Avenue, the M15.
Thank you. And if I will want to put in a formal thank you that they're finally doing
They're
that.
doing it. Sharon,
If we take photos of
can you use your mic?
If we take photos of cars in the bus lane, who do we send them to?
So it's not that simple. So it's a formal process where there's cameras that are installed in the buses, and the buses and the cameras in the buses automatically take photos, which are then sent to a cavern in the Department of Transportation, where people look through the photos just to make sure that it is in fact an offense. And then that goes to the Department of Finance, who issues the ticket. I would imagine that there will, at some point, be another opportunity or vehicle for doing that. Otherwise, at this point, I would say 311, but it has to be an official function so that the ticket can be issued. We
Are you
talked
talking about on First and Second Avenue or on another bus lane?
Lexington.
Yeah.
They haven't equipped those buses with the cameras yet on Lex.
I mean, I think that something that might be helpful. I mean, it's the city's responsibility to enforce the traffic on those streets. So if we have pictures and we send them and just, continue to press home the need for enforcement in the bus lanes, that,
Do I send them to you or to the DOT?
311 at this point, but let us, we'll find out from somebody within the MTA what the best way to do that is. Okay, thank you.
Your community board may have a contact at DOT, and that might be, like we do on Upper West Side, that might be a good place to send it. Another big topic for transit is obviously the issue of fare evasion. It's difficult to solve, as the MTA Inspector General's office points out. The OIG notes that transit has recently taken measures to reduce fare evasion. However, the impacts of these initiatives will be difficult to assess without reliable data on evasion levels. The OIG has uncovered issues with survey methodologies and data collection practices, which make it difficult to not only accurately capture the frequency, but make it challenging to pinpoint where actions must be taken. This issue was taken up at this week's Finance Committee and board meetings, mainly by Commissioner Robert Lynn, who called for the need to analyze granular data to understand where actions must be taken. As you have likely heard, MTA will be hiring 500 additional police to help address fare evasion and overall crime and quality of life issues in the system, as well as assaults against transit personnel. Although there will be a police to help address fare evasion and overall crime in the system, and although this will be an infusion of $40 million from the Manhattan DA's office, no sustainable funding source has been identified other than the fact that if, in fact, this brings down fare evasion, which is now estimated upwards of $300 million a year, which is more than the next fare hike will bring in, they will help to pay for themselves in a certain way. Stuart.
I want you to get through your speech, but have a question.
Sure.
So in the discussions about fare evasion, they talk about enforcement and extra personnel. I rarely see any discussion about changing or studying the entry points.
Yes.
Whether the gates are narrower, whether they're higher, whether you rely on different types of entry.
We had just such a discussion.
Hardware, because in other cities, that's what they're doing to fight fare evasion.
Yes, Andy
And-
Byford spoke about how it
Oh.
is in London, and in the case of London and Washington and some other cities, you have to tap out. That would really reduce throughput here, and some of those cities are zonal, so there's an important need to tap out. We are all one fare, so there's no need to tap out. But yes, the discussion of the fare entry control areas, the way the slam gates are situated, and all of that was discussed, and will continue to be discussed.
Because it's a lot cheaper than personnel.
It sure is.
Sheila and Bradley also attended Railvolution, which is a conference that brings together rail experts from North America, and that was a hot topic of conversation nationally, internationally, Canada, and things that they're looking to further review and consider and recommend as options and opportunities. So we'll be hearing more from them.
Last, well, actually, it's not last, but there's exciting news for Brooklyn riders who ride the N line. Southbound platforms on the Sea Beach line between Fort Hamilton Parkway and 86th have been reopened after being closed for 2 years. 4 new elevators were installed at New Utrecht and 62nd stations, an important transfer point, obviously, and most of the original contractual construction work is complete. And anyone that's seen the Sea Beach line, it's a world of difference how it looks now. However, it's not all good news. The project has run over budget by $77 million. Platform roof canopy leaks have reoccurred, some of which is water coming from private residences. And testing and commissioning delays may impact the October 31st date of the 8th Avenue elevator opening. Stuart.
So I've been vocal on this issue because I ride that train instead of the F, because I like it. I don't have to walk upstairs. I said in this meeting several times that when they were installing the canopies, there was water issues, not necessarily from houses, but I don't think the way they sealed the canopies with the structure were done in a way that we would accept. I think they have to go back as the weather starts to change and test that and hold the contractor accountable. They've made significant progress with the graffiti, and they've nearly painted over very nicely all of it that we were talking about at this meeting. I don't know if this had anything to do with it, but they really did.
When you mentioned the leaks in the canopies, can you identify specific stations?
I did, and I passed them along. I told you Avenue U, Kings Highway, and New Utrecht were the stations that I observed this.
Okay. Thank you. While we're on the subject of Brooklyn, both Chris and I attended a meeting at which several elected officials, assembly persons, city council members, Andy Byford were in Brooklyn Heights concerning the Clark Street elevators. They are badly in need of work. There are 3 of them. 2 of them are sort of together and 1 is sort of separate. There are several proposals at how to deal with this. A complete shutdown of the Clark Street elevators would close the station for approximately 7 months. They could do all of the elevators, the stores, the retail within the Hotel St. George would remain open with signs declaring that they're open. That would be the fast way to do it. This was a packed house at St. Francis College on Remsen Street, and then the other alternative was doing them in a group of 2 and 1. That would take 2 years. The station would remain open. There was a lot of talk about accessibility. Would there be a jitney? Would there be a shuttle service if the station was closed totally? I think Andy, because he is so knowledgeable and charming and has that wonderful accent, I think he convinced the crowd that the 7-month total shutdown with possibly a jitney serving both High Street and or Borough Hall, and we spoke afterwards, and we don't see people waiting for the jitney. They're going to walk, if they're able to walk, obviously, to the nearest station. Brooklyn Heights is not exactly what you'd call a transit desert. There are lots of options, but I think that's likely the way they're going to go. But that is an important project. He was asked about making Clark Street accessible, and that would require opening up Clark Street and major work and doing side-by-side platforms. He didn't absolutely rule it out at any point in the future, but it isn't going to happen soon, and these elevators really need to be serviced much more quickly than we're talking about making the station accessible. So stay tuned. There will be another meeting, and we will see where that goes. Edith.
Can you use the, can you please? Thank you.
I found the description of that meeting and Andy being there very interesting in contrast to what's been happening in Washington Heights, where there's not been a damn thing done. Howie Levine can't be bothered to come to our community board meetings or our district cabinet meetings, and these things are just happening without any conversation. For God's sakes, the president of the, New York City Transit came to Clark Street. Has anyone had that courtesy to Washington Heights? No. We didn't even get a goddamn meeting about the Bronx buses, which are going through Washington Heights. I really find this discussion very disturbing and feel all the more that we don't count in the world of the MTA. This is ridiculous.
Well, as you know, since you were there, Adonis Rodriguez came and spoke.
Well, because he was running for Congress,
Yes.
people. No question.
Because he mentioned the South Bronx.
No,
Well,
I loved
he
it. The
mentioned
congressional
Washington.
district.
He mentioned the issue Edith is referring to, and Edith spoke eloquently about this issue. And, we want all sections of the city to get equal treatment, obviously, and equal attention.
And we're not.
Finally, we have been told that implementation of the transformation plan is supposed to get underway by October 15th, yet we still don't have a chief transformation officer in place, and we do not know when they will be hired. There are some board briefings coming up in a couple of weeks, and I'm guessing we're going to hear about those positions. Can I just finish? Because I'm almost finished.
Oh, I wanted to ask you about the transformation, but go ahead.
All right. Counterintuitively, a contract was approved yesterday by the board for 6 headhunting firms, and no, they're not located in Borneo, to help hire 48 new managers from outside the agency to staff the new Office of Transformation. With an implementation date so close but no chief transformation officer or implementation plan in place, we have serious concerns on how this is going to play out. So stay tuned for news on that. Yes, Trudy.
Okay. At the last meeting, or maybe the meeting before that, I brought it up a couple of times. I still would like to know, since the plan is supposed to save money or use money for needed projects, and since it's supposed to consolidate various staff functions and whatever, I still don't have an explanation, and I've not just spoken here, I've spoken to a number of people all over the place, and nobody seems to have a straight answer. Number one, what does the Chief Transformation Officer do, and why that position can't be taken by somebody internal, or an internal position be renamed, okay? And then I didn't know it was, I heard that there were also going to be staffing of this office, but I didn't know it was going to be 48 new positions. And now you're saying that we're also going to spend money for headhunters, which cost money, to staff these positions that nobody seems to know exactly what they are. So I am now going on record asking for an explanation. This is like the third meeting that I've brought this up. So of this whole transformation office and what it is and why it has to go outside and how much exactly it's going
The
to
issue of
cost.
going outside versus hiring in-house was raised at yesterday's board meeting, by the
And-
way. They're looking both outside and in-house, is the way it was put.
Why? Why are they looking
Judy,
outside?
Your questions are the same questions that we've been asking on the record, in our testimony, that we've put in emails, that we've written in letters. So those are excellent questions. We don't know the answer.
Well, can't we demand an answer?
We've been demanding an answer. We have been demanding answers in public meetings and in private meetings. I don't know that there is an answer. The board members committee members on Monday expressed frustration that an RFP was being developed for a firm to come in to do an implementation plan for an office that's being developed and put together, hold on, that the board hasn't seen, that the board hasn't voted on, that the board knows nothing about. That there is, on Monday, the concerns were raised about all these positions coming from being hired externally. Yesterday, Pat Foy said that they were also doing internal hires. However, I looked yesterday on the MTA website, internal website, and saw none of the job descriptions that they mentioned listed there. So we do not know. Don't know. Excellent questions.
Can we go public on this?
We have.
And no, I mean public, that it's in the media. I haven't.
It has
seen-
been in the media, but here's the thing, nobody cares. I mean, there's a
They
small
don't
group
care
of people who
that
care.
so much new money is going to be spent on a plan that is supposed to save money.
It's legislatively directed.
Yeah.
So it's not as though it's being done by choice, it's being done by mandate. And the genesis and the way the whole thing is coming together is scrambling right now to put together something so that implementation begins on October 15th, whatever implementation means. So
I mean, if it weren't so serious and it didn't involve so much money, it would almost be humorous. When you say they're putting something together by October 15th,
Mm-hmm.
which they don't know what it is that they're trying to put together.
we don't know that
or
they don't know.
who,
We don't know. And it hasn't been
And they don't
publicly
wanna-
But they
they don't
haven't
wanna talk about
publicly
it.
said what it is.
However, Trudy, the chairman announced yesterday there will be a transformation task force, and I asked him if I could be on it, and he says, sure. So
But what is this task force going to do?
it's going to be kept advised of all of the progress that the transformation is.
Well,
Say that again? I'm hopeful I will.
yeah, but can you get some information right? Look, when I speak and I ask these questions, it's not just on my behalf. You know I'm being asked.
course.
And I do go to various people who are in a position to know, and they basically say what you've just been saying now and saying, Trudy, maybe through your insidious means, you can find out. And I'm talking about elected officials, I'm talking about.
be helpful for the elected officials to ask those questions.
Yes, it would.
They have.
No, we haven't heard them talk about it publicly to the extent that, I mean, we've been working with a group of other advocates, talk to the media every day to try and get and give information about this, and it's just not there. So the elected officials are in the best position to demand answers.
Let me ask on the record, since I wear a number of hats, but I've been trained well now not to go public. Sometimes I go public as me, but not representing this council or even giving my position here. I could, but I don't want to do anything that's going to muck up the works even more. So I'm asking, I mean, it is so frustrating. It is, that's why I'm going on record right now, so at least it's on the record
Can you
here.
imagine
But
how frustrating it is for us? We're sitting at the table and we don't have the
no,
answers.
I understand, but what can I as an individual, or we as a group,
You have
or
a lot of
you,
political connections. Ask those people to ask these very questions.
and they ask me?
Well, then tell them that you don't know the answers, that we don't have those
It's, okay, I'm just going to go, but I am not, unless I have your permission at some point, and I'll talk to you guys first, to go public, because sometimes I'm asked on the record these kind of questions. And I will, but first I will check with you then. And I'm going on the record here for our record in stating that.
Okay, let's, yes, Edith.
Question. Since this is part of the legislation, are we to assume, this is a very silly question, but I'm going to ask it. Are we to assume the state is covering the cost of this? No. So bottom line is, the state is telling us to do all this crap, taking it out of our money, in effect, either from the state or from the city or from whoever.
It's an unfunded mandate.
And it's sort of we'll give you the congestion pricing if you do all of these things.
I would love to see this as a graphic, and this is not meant to be facetious, but let's put a graphic and say, this is costing us 3 M9s or 3 whatevers. It would be a great, simple thing that people can
The reorg
understand.
is supposed to save a lot of money by removing duplicative departments like IT,
spending
HR,
by making
procurement.
48 new vice presidents,
I know.
I mean, that's great.
then they're very expensive.
Excuse
They're
me.
supposed to save $500 million a year.
When?
To this reorganization.
So in other words, you
In 20
spend
years, 100
10 million, I'm just taking a figure out of the
Stu has
air.
had his hand
You
up.
spend $10 million to save eventually, and you don't even know way, maybe 10 million. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. Maybe I'm
500 million.
Yeah, but maybe I am,
Jane had-
no, but the 10 million, it's going to be a lot more than 10 million. By when you take the cost of headhunters, you take the cost of consultants, and you take the cost of, plus all these new positions, plus this new
Yes.
Uber person.
Let's get Stuart and Bill, because they've had their
Two
hands up.
things very quickly. So
Yes.
just piggybacking on something that Edith said gave me an idea. Have we tried to leverage our relationships with the legislature to see whether they're querying this? If it's,
Yes.
because there's money involved, and
Right, so
that's
this,
one- yeah,
I'm
that's-
just going to respond to
yeah,
that.
We've
So,
met with several.
Can you turn this off for a second? So the members of the legislature are equally frustrated.
Right.
And talking about people in leadership positions, people who, we have our relationships and they're growing, working with the other advocacy organizations, they have their relationships in there. We've got a pretty wide net. This was part of the mayor and the governor's 10-point plan that was announced earlier in the year. So this is happening. So the question is, what is this and what is happening?
Right, but they have statutory options to probe. We also have options, but not as vast. The other thing is, people have very short memories, and Andrew may remember the savings through the formation of the Business Service Center and consolidating HR and all of the other things that was supposed to do. It sounds very similar to some of the things they're talking about now. And we questioned the budget director ad nauseum, and we wanted specifics on numbers. And if they never realize that, we want more specifics, but I think we need to leverage these other relationships if we don't have the tools for them to respond to us,
Can I just answer Stu's thing? Okay, and then I will answer what Stu said. Why?
I had something that isn't on this particular point. It was on something else that came up earlier.
Look, Stu, this is why I brought this up, because as they say, and as you know, I have a number of connections with elected officials and politicians and what have you, and they are the ones who've been asking me these questions. They are as much in the dark as we are, just as Lisa has been saying and Andrew has been saying. Seems to be, and nobody knows whose idea a lot of this is. It's not even the governor. The governor's office points to the mayor's office, and the mayor's office says no. The mayor's office points to the governor's office, and the governor's office says that in order to get to mayor, of course, it was the mayor who was the last holdout on this, that they had to make certain concessions to him. Where it comes from, I don't know, but it's like this, which is not on the record, but I'm crossing my hands and pointing in two different directions at the same time for the record. So, Stu, believe me, it is frustrating and we can still ask the questions, which is why I brought this up again and again and again, and on the record, etc. Okay?
No, I have totally on a somewhat different subject, which Trudy had brought up earlier regarding escalators. While it is unquestionably true that when one is out, 1 out of 2 is not working, the one in service ought to be the up escalator. It is not an absolute fact that some people do not have more trouble going down than going up. I know because I've been there after I'd done something strange to my knee, and I was assured by an orthopedic surgeon that I was far from unique. But I think our position certainly ought to be, as Trudy was explaining, but I don't think we ought to say that this is true in all cases at all times, because it isn't.
Also, just to say, your mic is on. Thank you. Also on the same day, on the 16th, that early morning, I was also on the F Express. The first one runs. The funny thing is my train was on time, but the local one that was supposed to leave ahead of us left late. So as people worry, oh, wait a minute, there's an F Express going through. Then my F Express was actually on 5 minutes. Because when we got to J Street Metrotech, we beat the one that was supposed to be in front of us 3 or whatever minutes, because we were supposed to meet him at 7th Avenue, do a connection point. Mm-hmm. He was somewhere behind. We don't know where happened to him, but when we were ready to leave at 7:07 at Stillwell, the other one that was coming in came in late because it was an empty platform, people waiting.
Well,
but the ridership on the Express, everyone was running on the Express. They didn't even care about the local because it was an old local F train, the 46s. The bottom line is the two when they have those two F Expresses, it does move. But Andrew, as you and I discussed in the past, I think it's better if they do increase the Express more. It should terminate. The ones that have Kings Highway will be a better way to run Express, because the Coney Island one can run local or whatever which way they want to do it. But you got too many Fs on the local that there's nothing room for a G train to come in. And that's when
I was at J Street Metrotech last evening when an F Express pulled in that was going to Kings Highway, wasn't going to Coney Island. And when they made the announcement, you should see how many people dashed off that F train and filled the platform at J Street waiting for the regular local F train.
The only confusion, there's also been complaints that instead of it coming in not with a diamond shape, it comes in with a circle.
Yes, it did not have a diamond.
That's where the throwing off comes up, because if you don't tell them that's a diamond shape.
Well, they did the requisite number of announcements. Please be advised, this is an F Express. The next stop will be 7th Avenue.
No,
so they did
you're
that.
correct. They did do the announcement, but why is the F coming in as a circle but not a diamond? Because when the first one came in, the very first one came in as a diamond shape, but when you got to J Street, all of a sudden...
That was for Inauguration Day, Chris. That wasn't for...
No. I'm talking about that evening, too, on the first evening run, because I did take a peek for a few minutes.
I don't know. I will ask.
Yeah, well, it's still being worked.
By the way, I neglected to announce that today is our Daglaversary. Lisa has been here 1 year.
And she still looks young.
You know you're stuck with me.
Edith.
I'd like to point out, as usual, that making announcements for a mismarked train does not serve individuals with hearing impairments.
Absolutely.
So don't sit there and say, but they made the requisite announcements. Doesn't mean
No,
shit.
I was saying that because Chris was saying that he had experienced a diamond-shaped F.
I understand that.
Yeah.
But, if you're looking for a round F and it's got a diamond, doesn't matter how many times you make that announcement. If you can't hear it or understand it, it hasn't happened.
Okay.
So we need to be much more sensitive to the fact that simply making announcements does not make everything better.
Absolutely true. Stuart?
Not to prolong this, but what time were you at J Street approximately?
About 6.
Okay, because there are only 2 trains in the morning and 2 in the
Yes.
afternoon, and that may not have been one of the actual scheduled trains to run express. As they say in the announcement, the reason they're doing this on a limited basis is because there are 26 stops between Broadway, Lafayette, and Coney Island, and it's the longest
So
stretch.
you're saying
So
this
I'm
could have
saying
been
they-
a
they-
regular local
they
that was
fre-
made in express?
That's correct. They
Okay.
frequently have, because I go home with the F instead of the N.
Yes, it could have been.
They frequently have gaps in service, bunching, and that's the way they deal with it. And so they may be doing what he's talking about. I haven't seen it, but depending on that time, it may
Well,
not have.
we have the schedule,
it's-
so we can go and look and see if
because
they
it's-
are.
I want to be on the record. It's a joke. The 2 in the morning and the 7:32 out of Kings Highway and the other. It's a joke. It's not really.
And
It's not what they had before when they had an F Express.
no, it isn't. And
And-
having it south of Church Avenue, stopping at 18th
Right.
Avenue and Kings Highway makes a lot of sense.
Right, and they refer to it as South Brooklyn Riders. South Brooklyn is Red Hook.
Exactly.
I live in the town of Gravesend.
They
so,
meant southern. They meant southern Brooklyn instead of South Brooklyn.
That's
But
correct.
That's correct.
So-
Avenue and Kings Highway
Yeah, that's where the old F Express ran.
and Bergen Street.
Yeah, and you had a Bergen Street lower level then, so it didn't go nonstop from 7th Avenue to J Street, obviously. All right, we need to move to old business because our speakers will be here before too long. Edith.
Okay, I would like to say that I'm very happy at this point with the training program they've been doing with the train people. Yesterday, when I had to do like the trip to out of Mongolia and back in Brooklyn, every single train conductor knew transfers, knew how I was going to get back to Chambers and then back to here, etc., which is a very unique experience. And I think that it says something about Andy Byford's training protocols.
Yeah.
Edith, was there an announcement on the train itself or on the platform before you got out that the elevators were out? Because that's a protocol that Andy talked about implementing. That's did I dream it or he said it?
No, he did.
Yeah.
He has mentioned that, and because we mentioned the guy
Yeah.
on the A train
Right.
who does the announcements, but it's not. Does not seem to have made it into the protocol at this point.
So I think actually he was talking about it because of the L train work, and that was I know, but
Yeah, it's-
at least it's a point of consciousness. So
Okay.
hopefully it will become an implemented point of consciousness.
It's interesting because when you look at what the information is, when I sent you a really good announcement,
Yeah.
an email the other day, and it was great. It actually told you what the alternatives were. It didn't just send you to the stupid website. That's the level of service everyone needs. I'm coming down this morning on the 1, and they're still saying, go to 157th Street and transfer to a 3 to go to 168th Street. Huh?
What?
I mean, no, I'm sorry. And then you're going to get on an M3 bus. The fact of the matter is, if you're coming down on the 1 train, get off at 181st. Don't go down to 157th to take an M5 back. It doesn't make sense, and it's making a lot of people very crazy. Now, you want to say that this is something that they're trying to make a format? It's not working. And once again, they don't care about, the ends of the line, as usual.
Okay. Other old business. Mr. X.
BMTC Beach Line. The downtown express track needs to be rebuilt and separated from the uptown express track. Why it was severed and it merged with that track remains a mystery. There's no excuse for that. Because as you know, there are 4 tracks between 8th Avenue and 86th Street, not 3. So if they want to rebuild this line so bad, as I said, rebuild the downtown express track with 72 spots, and then they merge with the uptown express track, which is unnecessary. There's no excuse for that.
Line is a 4-track line for sure.
But between 8th Avenue and 86th Street
Yeah.
only.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Also regarding old business. Okay. I didn't mention this before. Maybe I should have mentioned this before. This is regarding what happened approximately 1 year ago. The MTA PD can forget about banning me from this building. I don't know where they get off approach me saying if I don't do this or I don't do that, like a prince and a frog, I'll be banned from this building. First they tried doing this at 347 Madison Avenue, and then they tried doing it here. No, forget it. Okay? I have a right to testify at any board meeting, any public hearing. They don't want to hear what I have to say. They could put cotton in their ears, or better yet, they could take a walk and get some fresh air. But for them to get up in my face and say, I'll be banned from this building for an undisclosed reason is outrageous. And years ago, I indicated how they conduct security checks is the pits.
Well, you're not banned from the building because you're here
Not, I'm saying, it was, they threw that in my face here approximately 1 year ago.
1 year ago, but
Which I didn't appreciate.
we spoke to them, so.
Okay, just to keep you informed. New business, I have some,
We're not up to that yet.
again, but I'm just saying, I'm just preparing you now. New business, I have some,
Okay.
something I'd like to discuss.
All right. Matt Shotkin. Come on, use a microphone, please.
I don't know if this is old or new business, but when you go to the website, is there a contact us link with a form that you can fill out? Because Bradley yesterday told me, and he was a little bit rude in saying this, that I have to put all my comments now on the website and stop calling, which I don't really appreciate being told that.
Let's find out if there is a contact us. I thought,
There is a contact
Yeah.
us. Matt, it's not that you call, it's that you call 10 times a day. And if you have a question, that's what we're here for. What would be most helpful if you would save everything and ask us at
And write it
once.
down, yeah.
Okay? You don't have to necessarily write it down, but make one phone call instead of a lot of phone calls.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
That we would really appreciate. We're not we're not trying to not
think I have
provide
new business
information.
too,
It's just
so, okay.
a lot of phone calls, one right after the other. Thank you.
yes. You can use that mic.
Still on.
This is on. So the old business is the Brighton Beach B Train Express service. As I've mentioned before, and since we're all talking about the F, Brighton Beach B service is being slowly dismantled. They continue to cut hours off at night. So instead of the trains running till 10 or 11, they're ending at 8:30 or 9:30. The other night I was stranded in West 4th Street for 20 minutes before Brighton showed up. This morning at 9:30 at Sheepshead Bay Road, it was a 12-minute headway between B trains. So I took the Q, which I can't stand, all those local stops. And the air conditioning isn't as good as they are on the old cars. So I don't know what the problem is, why the B train is being scapegoated cannibalized, but it's wrong because the Q, almost like the F, has 1 million local stops, and the B train is much faster. and I'd like somebody to start asking around.
We have asked those questions. They told us they were doing work at specific places on the B line, that this work would necessitate earlier closure of the line from the normal 10-something to 9-something. I asked very specifically, when this work is over, are you bringing back the original hours? And they pretty much said they would be.
Well, then I have just one favor, as President Trump would say, just one favor. Can the MTA actually post when the last train at the station, and I think Chris brought this up 6 months ago. Right, don't say the last train will be at evening rush hours, but just say at Kings Highway or West 4th Street, the last B train will be
Yes.
blah.
I will definitely ask for that. I did ask for that already. I was told that would not be a problem, that they're looking to do something like that, and it hasn't happened.
I don't think it's really being done.
So
Thanks.
they do that at Bowling Green. They say, okay, if there's a shutdown, this is the last train at this station, this is the last train at this station, this is the last train at this station. I think we've all been trapped when the last train is left before the time it says.
Well, then
So,
if they could do it on the A division, they could do it on
They
the
actually
B.
have third-party apps that tell you that, but you're right, it should be posted. Yes.
Just to add that, due to the fact that there were Yankee games, sometimes the regular 8:30, where it's supposed to be the last beat, they're not called the last. That is the regular last beat, but they also have special events trains.
Yeah.
That's called whatever train. But times when it comes down the Brighton line, it will say B train. So there are times that they need to not say B trains, they need to say special
If
instead.
it's the whatever train, shouldn't it have a W on it?
I agree. Take a W.
Oh,
I'll
okay.
take a W. Andrew, I have new business when we get, because I have.
We're not there yet,
I know, but I have really important ones.
as does everyone else. Stuart?
Some old business, but.
That's what I'm doing,
Just
old.
to comment on this gentleman's point. I've seen at West 4th Street a poster that talks about the last B trains at particular stations. So there is a poster there.
Oh.
Maybe it's not very widely distributed, but that's
Yeah.
not my.
You're
type.
talking about a sign that's
A white
yes,
sign
right.
on a pole that
Yeah.
says, the last train will depart from this station at this
I've
time.
seen
I've
those
seen
too.
that for the B and recently. Maybe not extensively, but it was on a few poles. My questions are twofold. Any new updates on the success or lack thereof of the Atlantic ticket, which I ask every few meetings? Any new data that they've shared with you? And the second thing is the study that we were discussing the last time with rationalization of the NNR and maybe some of the changes, whether there's been any update in that study. Because I know Bradley was asking some of us some follow-up questions based on.
Well,
on
as you
the
know,
discussion.
Atlantic Ticket has been extended. I did speak with Phil and with another Long Island Railroad official at meetings when we were on the aside waiting for something. And the only issue that Atlantic Ticket is popular. We did raise the issue with them. Why isn't it available on your phone? Why isn't it available, for advance purchase and things of that nature? And they said they're looking at that. The only issue they're encountering that is a potential problem is the use of trains between Jamaica and Penn. Several folks are trying to use Atlantic Ticket on the run to Penn Station. They're being very understanding. They're not charging them when they catch these folks the onboard fee plus the entire fee. They're charging them the differential, which is good. But they seem to indicate to us that it has been successful.
Buying those tickets?
I'm sorry?
For that run to Penn, where are the tickets being purchased?
No, they're using a regular Atlantic ticket and thinking they can go to Penn, or
Yes,
trying
yes,
to
but I'm
beat the
saying where they-
conductor, and
oh.
hopefully they won't get inspected,
So they could be buying them anywhere, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I don't know what station their point of origin
Okay.
was, but
And
we've
on-
been asking for that,
Yeah.
but also we're continuing to press harder to have them included in the app. There's issues with the app developer. They're not doing contracts anymore
Yeah.
because of the change to Omni for e-tickets developer.
Right.
But they're going to see if they can put this in there because they're getting a lot of feedback.
Okay, but it's popular. Just on Mr. X's point, he's absolutely correct. The express track heading towards Coney Island has been severed from the area north of Kings Highway, heading towards Coney, that track. So it's really only 3 tracks. They don't do testing there anymore as they used to. They don't deliver trains through that line anymore. They don't have the NX Express anymore.
No, they surely don't.
So this was part of a rationalization years ago, and they've never restored that.
We will see if...
Something they should re-explore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other old. New. New?
Yes, Andrew.
No, it's calling on me. Thank you. No, thank you for calling me a lady. Okay. Okay, the first thing, as I questioned at the beginning of this meeting, with Ronnie Haycom has really been wonderful, not just in the role that she's now had, but before that also. So I would ask that we go on record by just sending her a letter, or sending a letter to the powers that be, just saying how much we appreciate all the hard work that she's done all these years, and that we will really miss her. And this is something to that effect, a very positive thing, and go on record for Ronnie. So, okay, if we can do that,
We'll do it.
and if you can, and I would like this, just as we've done before, not just from the Transit Riders Council, but each of our names on there, if we can. I know I would like to have my name on there to her. Rather, I was thinking I was going to write her my own personal note, but then I thought it would be better if it came from us. Rather than, okay. So that's number one. My other new business, it might be old business. As you know, I have been one of the biggest proponents and very positive on bus time and finding when the bus is coming. And with each bus stop, I don't know how many lessons I have given to people about to look on the lollipop and see the stop's number and who and how you text it. Now that they are putting in, not using the app, but just doing for people who don't use apps, that you can get it just by texting. Yeah, okay, just by texting. Now that they are putting in these new, I don't even know if to call them lollipops, but these automated signs which are, by the way, not really accurate. What they have been doing is that they put in new time schedules in the lollipops, but it doesn't have the bus stop number on it anymore.
No, they've done away with those numbers.
I know, but it is wrong because there is nothing.
They're
But
doing
they
away
have
with the
not.
schedules as well that are on the signs.
But no, they still have this. But they have the routes, and they
Yep.
say how long it should take, and then it says if you want to get information, they still give you the text number, but put down the route and what street you're at.
Yes.
Instead, I would like to know why when something was good, why they did it, but. The answer that when I've asked this question to others, they've said, "Well, we're putting in the electronic,"
Yes,
but
but they're
I
not
can't
everywhere.
tell you how many stops along 3rd Avenue, along 2nd Avenue, along just on the east side, and I'm sure it's all over. Can I finish, please? I don't. Yeah. Okay. Oh, you're going to give me an answer? I'm sorry. I thought you were pointing to. Yeah.
Deborah.
Yeah. Okay. Can you speak in the microphone so we have it on record? Yeah, I'm going to turn it off. Don't worry. Yeah.
I'm just saying, my understanding is that we've responded to that sound criticism, and we're working to restore the QR codes as well as the bus stop numbers. So that's criticism we've been getting.
And so something will be done about
Yes.
restoring it.
Yes.
And why do certain stops have the electronic thing that gives the bus number and says how long the wait is, and some don't? And it's not even at the cross streets. Like 79th and 3rd doesn't have it, but 75th and 3rd does, if I remember correctly. I'm not sure. But some of the major stops where it's the 101, 102, 103 don't have it.
Can we
and
just
some
take
that are
this
local
offline,
stops.
because our speakers are going to be here in less than 10 minutes, and you guys can have
No,
the
but I think
conversation
this is
about-
something, this is an
But Judy,
issue.
this is very specific and.
No,
that's a
but this is bus stops all over. It's not just, I was just using as an example.
but then
I am
let's-
saying that this is something, it's on the west side, Andrew, you know that, it's on the west side also, it's all over the
Right,
place.
so that's a good conversation. We'll follow up on that. Thank you.
Talking to you, microphone.
failure to, I'm sorry, I'm like, I cannot see them, I cannot reach them, I cannot hold my phone high enough in the air to get the Q code. And I know this is not an MTA sole issue, this is a DOT MTA issue, but the bottom line is, between cars hitting the damn lollipops, the things just falling down to the ground, the box itself is all the way down. They're totally, I'm sorry, it's a lawsuit waiting to be had.
Have, just as a quick aside, and not in place of what you are both advocating, but have either of you tried using the Bus Time app?
Of course.
Okay, so that I find is much more accurate than those electronics bus countdown clocks that I've seen on the.
They should, no, I'm not talking about the electronic. I am talking about something called bus time.
I know.
53311. 53311 or 5
52.
something.
I know the number.
I can tell you
You're
what it is.
talking about text messaging. I know what you mean.
Text messaging.
I know.
There are a lot of people. I don't use apps for everything. I'm an appless person, okay?
Bus Time is great.
But what I'm saying is bus time is something that worked, that was really good, and to eliminate it is ridiculous.
No, you're talking about the texting, not the Bus Time. All right, we don't have much time. Yes, Stuart.
Just on your point, something, because this is an issue I raised when they did the conversion in Brighton, and they did restore the Guide-A-Ride.
Yep.
The limitation of MTA Bus Time app is that you don't see if there's special runs. So, for example, in our part of the world, like Edith refers to, we're at the other end, there's school runs and buses that don't do the full route. So you wouldn't necessarily see that looking at a moment in time on Bus Time, where a bus was. So people use both the Guide-A-Ride and the electronic signs that are becoming more prevalent. And this came up in a community meeting with Steve Simbrowitz in Sheepshead Bay recently. Same issue that they're talking about in Manhattan, the lack of Guide-A-Ride signs and clarity with the absence of the Guide-A-Rides on poles.
Okay. New business? Go ahead. I see that.
Regarding the new business, because, it's been a while since we have an acting vice president from bus division. When do you think we're going to ever get a chance to meet with him and discussing, concerns? There are some, I'm going to say there's not bus complaints, but there are concerns that passengers now lately, I've been seeing, and I know Stuart can vouch with me on the same route he's talking about, the B1. I'm seeing lately passengers ready to hit a driver, and it's been brought up already. I have brought this up. But there are concerns of that. There are times the buses are running late because it's not the driver's fault, but it's also the same time people are waiting for trying to get on the bus, but people don't understand you can't just stand near the door. If Edith's on the bus, or any senior or disabled person, they can't get off or get on because everyone's blocking that ramp. So is there a way we can maybe how to work together with bus division as the years comes up? Because since we have an acting person, I want to know, can we have a meeting with him in the near months?
So that's an issue that was raised and discussed at length yesterday also, about assaults on transit workers, particularly on bus workers. So that's I would say a very high priority on the list of things of concerns that they're working to address through a variety of efforts. And it's not necessarily the head of the bus division that's going to be responding to that. It's the safety officer, it's the police, it's enforcement, it's a variety of a number of different efforts that will also be in place for fare evasion.
And design on new buses which will have barriers to prevent assaults on drivers as well.
But still in the future, can we still have a meeting with
Yes,
the
of course we
acting
can.
person? Because
Craig is a very easy guy to talk to.
I have to be honest, I worked with Craig when we had some issues in the past, and
Chris, I'm not meaning to cut you off,
No,
but
no,
we're
I'm-
really running out of time, and there are a couple of... Mr. X has a... Yeah. Oh, yeah.
There are a few new issues. I have a few new business issues. Okay, I didn't appreciate how I was treated yesterday. I didn't appreciate how I was treated downstairs yesterday. Okay, there's a certain MTA employee, you've seen him, had the nerve to tell us we couldn't testify because this room was full to capacity. And as you know, we can't pre-register to speak. Board meeting wise, we could do a public hearing wise, although there was a time when Thomasina stopped us from doing that because he wanted everything done his way, which I didn't appreciate. That's disrespectful. Really is. It sounds like you're not accommodating everyone. You just accommodate who you feel should be accommodated. I don't play that. Okay, that's one issue.
No, they had an overflow room yesterday, and it was based on capacity in the room. I'm not saying it's right, and it's definitely going to be. That's the first I've heard that people were told they were not able to testify. They were not allowed to testify. I mean, they do also shut the list down when the meeting starts. So if you got there after the meeting started, then.
Excuse me, I was there before the board meeting started.
Okay, then we'll raise that, absolutely.
Way before the board meeting started. Okay, that's one issue. Okay, I didn't appreciate what happened to me at 233 White Plains on Monday, and I just gave you the paperwork. Okay, I put my MetroCard in the machine. I press the Get Card Info button. I ready to do that, regardless if I have money to it. I'm supposed to get the machine's supposed to return it to me, not suck it like a vampire. Does steal my damn money. I don't play that. You brave enough to steal my money, you should be brave enough to take me somewhere I get counseled, because that's what I need. If I give you a flying clothes all the time, what a Legion of Doom.
So this is what you provided
Okay.
us with. We'll take care.
Well, this, and also, Ronnie, aka the Fabulous Moolah, let me, clarification point. The Fabulous Moolah held 5 town hall meetings with Andy Byford. The first town hall meeting with him, the first one she held, was advertised in an untimely manner. It was held at York College. It was considered a town hall meeting. We can get on the microphone. I was the first speaker. The first person line, and subsequently I was the first speaker. Afterwards, she changed the wording from town hall meeting to community conversation, which is bullshit. And then she also changed the format. She decided we shouldn't get on the microphone. We should just write our statements and a question on a card and pray someone reads them, which is also bullshit. Okay? And also, she held 2 public hearings, one in 2017, one in 2020. She missed both of them. The 2017 public hearing was held here on primary election day. You know what people do on primary election day? They campaign, vote, and work the polls. So she started this public hearing at 6 p.m., I believe, but she held it on primary election day. I believe it was scheduled to start before 6 p.m. And at the top, she no-show. I was the first person line, so I was the first person I asked, did she no-show because she knew I was testifying and she didn't want me to make it like Peter Calico, a.k.a. the devil's disciple, or I should say Big Daddy Calico.
What was the point of the public hearing? Was it a fair hike hearing, or?
No, I forgot what, I have to check my records, but I'm saying it was held on primary election day 2017, a day people campaign, vote, and work the polls. And then it's about she no-showed. Possibly because she knew I was testifying and she didn't want me to make it like Big Daddy Calico.
All right.
You know what happened to me at 347 Madison Avenue years ago. And also, the one she held here in 2018, she no-showed. She was still the head. She succeeded Thomasina as the head. Okay, you're supposed to be, you're the head MT employee. The least you could do is show, not no-show, unless you have unless you have another commitment, a burning commitment, a dying emergency, you need to show.
We don't know what the
But
reason
I'm
is.
saying, but listen what I'm saying. When Thomasina was the head, he missed numerous public hearings. And I was here when I said, what's with Tom Prendergast no showing these public hearings? I said, it's not Tom Prendergast, it's Uncle Tom Prendergast. It's not Thomas Prendergast, it's Thomasina Prendergast. I'm the one who told him you should stay home and be a housewife, just wear able to dress.
That's like a trip back in time here.
Well, but I'm saying, I told him he should stay home and be a housewife, just wear able to dress.
Okay,
He's too big to wear too big to wear a miniskirt.
All right, now.
We're going to
Let's
check this
move
out.
on now.
If you're, are you owed some money from this mistransaction here?
I'm owed money from what happened on 9/23, also what happened on Burn 7 on 1/23.
Is that all in here?
Is that in here?
Yes,
Okay.
so you need to share those copies with Patrick, looks like dusty roads, and ain't
Actually,
it Byford?
I've gotten people's money back from similar types of bad transactions, so
Okay, but I'm
you'll get
saying,
your money.
also, the people who fix those machines, they have protection, they should also check them regularly.
There's
And-
another
Mandate them to do
contract-
that.
A contract was just let yesterday for making sure that
So-
that happens.
Yeah, and I asked in particular if a machine does what happened to you and it sucks somebody's card or it takes money in.
Like a vampire.
Yeah, does it send an electronic message that there's something wrong? And it does. So they probably know about it already, but we'll look into it for you.
Then why do we have to report that that gate is dead? It's the same
Look, and we,
thing-
all right,
It's the same thing as the auto gates.
so we have,
They suck them in and keep them.
we're gonna resume the new business after our speakers. Well, we do have time set aside in the agenda after our presentation. But we've
Yes.
asked our
Thank
guests
you.
to come today, so let's hear what
We've
they
had
have
a
to say.
number of inquiries on the issue of transit wireless. So what we hope today is to have some folks, Jim, is it pronounced Hintz? Heinz. And Melissa Newman, that one's easy. And they're here to answer some of to tell us how they're proceeding, what progress has been made, what we can expect. So welcome.
Yeah, good afternoon,
Do you
everyone.
want to, I don't have to read these.
No, that's okay. My name is Jim Heinz. I'm VP of Business Development, joined by my colleague here, Melissa Newman, who's our General Counsel. So we appreciate being invited here today to share with the audience here what Transit Wireless has done with the MTA New York City Subway Transit over the last several years, and open it up to any questions you may have. So
Terrific.
we did provide a few slides just because not everybody knows what Transit Wireless does.
Let's get through the presentation and then.
Yep, so we'll do that and then we'll open it up for any questions. By advancing. Okay, so this is probably an eye chart, but I'll just sort of give a narrative. Transit Wireless, we are a private-public partnership with MTA, meaning that we provide the capital and the operating expense to bring cellular and Wi-Fi networks to the New York City Transit Agency without any cost to the riders or taxpayers. We work in collaboration with all 4 of the wireless carriers, AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, and Sprint, to unify their network in the subway system at one time. So we're not burdening or shutting down or asking for time in the subways to do the installation. So it's a very compatible relationship that we have with the wireless carriers. And by doing so, we're able to fund a public Wi-Fi network that's at no charge to the riders in the New York City subway system. In addition to that, our network then provides connectivity for some of the critical services, such as the train arrival clocks that allow the riders to know when to expect the next train to arrive, as well as the help point system, so that if any riders should have any issues to report down there, it's also a critical service that we provide to the citizens. So, we're proud of the network that we've built for MTA. We actually provide a financial return now to MTA, so it's become a revenue source and not an outlay that can be used to fund other capital initiatives, such as the budget that was recently passed. So,
and I'll just clarify, there was never an outlet. I'll just clarify. The nice thing about this public-private partnership, there was never actually an outlay from the MTA. We did fund it ourselves, but we're in the process now, as Jim said, where the revenue's coming in after we the MTA now sees those revenues and is able to then use that money for something else. But there was never a time that MTA riders, taxpayers, the government paid for out of cash for the system.
right. And if we move on to this more pictorial slide, I think one of the key messages here is that we're trying to build a smart transit network for New York City. So today we're providing Wi-Fi connectivity and good cellular coverage, which makes riders happy when they're trying to communicate to families or others. But what this also enables are some of these smart city type of applications we've worked, I can't explicitly talk about, but some anti-terrorism type of applications, sensor devices that get placed in the stations so that we're protecting and providing a secure and safe rider experience. So this network that we've currently built in the stations that we'll look to expand over time is really meant to provide both a convenience for riders, but probably more importantly, a safe experience down in the subway system.
And I think one of the things, in addition to it not costing the taxpayers any money, is we were able to put this together in 283 subway stations ahead of schedule. That was something that was important to the state of New York when we first got the award. They wanted to beat that deadline, and we are happy that we did.
What's that?
We have
Sure.
one more slide.
I do have one more slide if I can get it going the right way. Well, this was just a case study of what we did, and again, this was an accelerated program of installing the subway station cellular and Wi-Fi networks. So, what people need to understand is that, well, since we live in the city, there's a lot of congestion that goes down below ground there. So we're having to work around a subway system that's operating 24/7 with a lot of brake dust and other elements. So the network that we're building is almost battle tested because it needs to be built in a way that provides for the environmentals that exist down there. And that's one of the challenges as we move forward to look at getting into tunnels, is that you have to operate around the train system. So I know we often get asked, why aren't we in the tunnels today? That's probably the easiest answer, is that the stations were more available to get started to get in there. And so, again, our intentions would be to collaborate going forward. So as far as the network map, we do have that on our site, and we can provide that as a follow-up.
Yeah.
So are all underground stations
Yes,
now?
so we have all 283 underground stations equipped with Wi-Fi and cellular today.
And you mentioned earlier that your network helps feed the countdown clocks that are in the stations.
That's right.
Do you also feed the out-front advertising panels that are giving countdown clocks?
We do. So in addition to what we're doing below ground, even above ground in all the stations, we're providing connectivity for the countdown clocks, and we provide high bandwidth connectivity for out front, both in stations today, as well as plans for when they bring the digital screens for both their advertising part, but more importantly for the public service, any information screens that come from New York City Transit, both in the stations and on the trains.
I'm just going to ask you one more thing, and then I'm going to open it up. Do you have an estimated time in your minds, all else being equal and GOs on the system obviously taking place, when you would expect tunnel coverage as well as underground station coverage?
Yeah, we really can't answer that today. As part of the overall planning that we do with MTA, I think right now their priorities are really set on some of the bigger programs that they announced yesterday, and we'll work with them to determine how we can fit in with their schedules.
All right, sure. Lisa?
Yep, thank you. What is your role, if you have one, with CBTC and ultra-wideband?
So the question around CBT and C and wideband for signaling, we're actually very compatible with what Siemens and Thales and the other providers are doing today. What our network allows any of those companies to do is to backhaul. We say take the data and the signaling information that resides on the train and bring it back to a central location, so that as they're running CBTC signaling, they can monitor from a central location where those trains are located.
Okay. Oh. Andrew, will you call on me? Thank you. Okay, I have three very quick questions. First of all, what is BAI, your parent company? Who are they and what does it stand for?
BAI is a company in Australia, and I think it's the name stands for BAI and Broadcast Australia Incorporated, probably. But it is our parent. It is a majority shareholder of Transit Wireless, and they have television towers in Australia, but they also own several other types of systems like this one in Hong Kong and in Toronto and in Australia, in Sydney. They are a majority shareholder.
Okay, that's question number one. Number two, do you get revenue from the ads that pop up when you're in the subway and you're trying to get hooked up online? And I think right now it's a Chinese restaurant or a Chinese Lucky Rice Festival. Was it? Yeah. Well, whatever it is, you can see that. I just say no immediately. I don't see what it is, but it was Chicago, I think, for a while, and Bloomberg. So is that a revenue source?
That is a revenue source because the Wi-Fi to the public is free. That helps pay for the free Wi-Fi.
Okay, because you've done a lot better with that. It used to be that after you said no, I want to go straight to Wi-Fi, it would then come back and it took forever to get hooked up. Now whatever you've done, it's a lot better. So thank you for that. Yeah.
And actually, thank you for telling us. I'll let our people know who run that part of the
because
system.
I was one of the big complainers because it'd go nuts, and by the time. And then the train would come in, and it still wouldn't come on, and then it'd be in a tunnel, and you got to start all over again. So, okay. And my third question: there is now MTA when you're on a bus, and when you're on an MTA bus, there is also a hookup to MTA or to a different not Link NYC, but it says, do you want to go on to MTA transit, not the same thing that's in the subways. Are you connected with that also, or what?
So are you referring to the My MTA app?
No, it doesn't go to the app. Well, it may go to the app. I don't know. It just, I don't think it's the app.
So MTA has its own internal connection down in the subways, so that if you're looking at which
This isn't subways. This is only above ground. On buses. On buses.
We're really clear it's Transit Wireless when it's Transit Wireless. So, to my knowledge,
you're not connected with
we're
that.
Not
no.
tied
Okay,
to
that's all I wanted to know. Whether or not
we are not on buses. No.
You are not. So that's something else. That's the MTA app then.
So
yeah.
no, so the MTA has been putting wireless Wi-Fi connectivity on buses. I'm not sure how they're doing that, but now we know how they're not doing that.
Yeah, well, that's why it gets a little confusing. But so you are just below ground.
That's right.
We are in the subway stations below ground. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Regarding outages, since you do handle those IKEA signages on the platforms, correct? The computer ones?
The countdown clocks, you mean?
That's one. And those when you want to touch the screen, the stone hands, whatever Aziz calls them?
No, those are not ours. We provide connectivity to the countdown clocks only.
So you only deal with the downtown clocks in the stations, and any other Wi-Fi that you deal with over there, like train tunnels? Because as Andrew said, there is times we're on a train, and let's say we want to check, say like God forbid, say if an elevator is out. Do you have, is that Wi-Fi going to be working, or you guys are working?
So we do not have the license to do in the train tunnels. Now, I will tell you, sometimes you're in a tunnel and you might actually get signal. Really? That's just, once in a while you will get signal, and that's just because the signal is very strong at the subway station, especially, I guess, if you're on a local line, and it'll permeate through the tunnel. But we do not have signal authority in the station, in the tunnels.
So you deal with the time clocks, but the one question is, that means, are you the ones that make sure it works properly so people can hear the sound, like saying when the train is approaching in the station?
That's an announcement, that's
No,
not the
computer
clock.
announcements.
Yeah.
I'm talking about computer now. I'm not talking about human voice. I know that's a tower, but there are human voices that says, well, not on the alphabet line, the number lines. Well, I'm double checking because you know what it is, because with Wi-Fi, trying to read everything from here or here, it's like it's misleading. People think your MTA Wi-Fi or whatever you guys call. It's very getting people to know transit wireless. They thinking you guys are the wireless that handles the whole MTA tunnels from station to station. So it's misleading. I'm just because I'm reading what somebody said, because a lot of people see when they see wireless, transit wireless, they think you are handling the IKEA stuff, those the kiosks. Thank you. The kiosks, even when it's saying how many minutes the next train's coming, it's letting people think you are the ones. That's what I'm looking at it, and not just me, but everyone else. That's misleading.
Okay, I can only tell you, we do the countdown clocks, and we do the Wi-Fi that's on the subway platform station.
With you, there needs to be a future expansion. Okay? As I told Harry Conner Jr. years ago, I was stranded in Brooklyn, Greenpoint section, because his compadres didn't have enough sense to tell me buses were running on McGinnis Boulevard, not Manhattan Avenue, in both directions, forcing me to stand by a former bus stop in bitter cold weather for over 10 minutes, not knowing what the hell was happening, which is frustrating. And so far, I haven't received any apology or compensation for my loss, and this is going back 18 years. So I'm not saying you have to do this today. I'm not saying you have to do it tonight. I'm not saying you do it tomorrow. But in the future, you need to expand your service everywhere. That's why I don't get treated like a penguin, much like the late Burgess Meredith.
You don't actually serve above ground stations, so you certainly don't serve bus stops outdoors, right? That's
No,
regular cellular coverage.
Yeah, we do not have the authority from the MTA to do that yet.
Yeah, so they only serve, underground stations.
But that's why I mentioned
Not
future
even
expansion.
elevated stations.
But Andy, that's why I mentioned future expansion. This way, I don't get treated like a penguin, which is what happened to me over 18 years ago. And I mentioned to you at all the bus forums you held between 2001 and 2012. You haven't had one since 4/27/12. Since 4/25/12. Sorry.
Well, what Mr. X is addressing, and which would be a great thing to have, is a PA system at all bus stops, that if the bus is doing something different or as well as something visual, but at least something that's audio telling you where the bus is going to be. But that's
Andrew,
not
they
these
just
folks.
said that they don't have anything to do with anything
I
above
understand
ground.
that.
So
I'm saying that MTA should be looking
yeah,
into that.
absolutely. But
Okay. Matt.
For what percentage of brake dust do you have on the actual tracks?
No,
They wouldn't know that?
Yeah, we don't have anything to do with that.
Can you tell us what your expansion plans are, and if you are in any conversations to go to the commuter rails or any of the outdoor stations as well?
So we're always in ongoing communications with respect to the commuter rails, above ground, and tunnels. But as I mentioned in my opening remarks, we don't have the license to do that today, and so we'll continue to work with the MTA on those plans to see where we can fit in.
I think you might have answered this question though, but it seems a little unusual in the sense of that with the Manhattan Bridge and also the Williamsburg Bridge, and which is outside. I understand that's not. Sorry. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out because planes of, with the Manhattan Bridge and also the Williamsburg Bridge, that you're not able to get the cell service. It sounds like it's the same. It's basically the bridges are, for all intents and purposes, the same problem as the tunnels. So that it just seems a little unusual because outside we're usually able to get something. Yeah, but not, but they don't cover. But I know. They don't cover elevated stations. So right. Bridge, I guess. Yeah, I'm just saying, but no, not so much the cell service, but also the Wi-Fi service. That's all I mean.
No, no, you are correct.
Again, we don't cover outdoors today.
The odd thing is that because you might have it at Canal Street and or DeKalb Avenue, either side of the bridge, to
That's
lose
true.
it when you're going outside is a little odd. It would be great if you could cover the two bridges that the trains do use. But you don't do it at the moment, so that's the answer to that.
I just want to go back to the signaling. So I was at the New Day for the MTA conference. That was on Friday. I'm not sure if either of you were there also. But there was a lot of conversation about new technology and connectivity and looking for the next great thing in signaling, which of course isn't going to happen overnight or tomorrow. We know that CBTC, the communication-based train control, sort of the parent of ultra-wideband and a lot of the other technologies. Do you see opportunities? I mean, you said that you're compatible, but do you have a role to play in the transmission of the data and the different, the ultra-wideband is a much easier hit to fix onto the trains than CBTC, right. And that infrastructure is much potentially less expensive and less timely to install. So how do
That's
you
right.
see the wireless work that you're doing now, without giving away your trade secrets, unless you want to, having the opportunity to expand into some of the next best thing?
That's a very good question. So for CBTC, we've built a very extensive 160-mile fiber network that connects to each of the stations. And that fiber network really becomes a very high capacity way of transmitting the signaling data that comes off of the train. So when I meant compatible with ultra-wideband is a way of getting the signaling information from the train to the side of the track. But then that signaling information has to rapidly and securely be transmitted back to the central command center for them to then be able to monitor the signaling systems. And so we're compatible with, but we would also, we would be in the planning phases along with many others on how we can implement an overall CBTC implementation with those companies that have been certified on the trains, including Siemens and Thales. So given the investment that we've made over the last several years, that infrastructure, most of it has already been implemented. And so it allows New York City Transit to continue their own plans with the signaling implementation without having to worry about building a new network to transmit that data.
With the work that's being done on the L train, with the partial or sometimes shutdown of the tunnels, is that an opportunity for you to wire the tunnels if that's part of what you can and will do? And with the new way of doing things, with the hanging of the cabling racks, is that an opportunity? And I'm going to speak for at least myself, but I don't want everybody to have cell phone access all the time, everywhere they go, because I think that a lot of fights will break out.
Mm-hmm.
But for emergency reasons, and I know that there's ways that you can allow some, communication and not necessarily others, or have Wi-Fi but not necessarily cellular conversation services. But is that an opportunity as more infrastructure is built using that technique to wire the tunnels?
So it's more of an opportunity when the tunnels are shut down for a period of time to be able to build the infrastructure in there. Regardless of whether you advocate for using the phone, we're not an advocate for how people are going to use it. We just want them to have the choice, but it does give us an opportunity during those shutdowns to take advantage of those windows, definitely, and it lowers the cost of doing that because they're not being shut down for communications services, but for a larger renovation. We're not doing it now with the line.
Do you get advance notice of the GOs that are taking place so that you can do upkeep and?
Yes.
We do, yes.
You do
We
do
work
that.
very closely with the MTA when they are, when there's upkeep and things and we need to shut something down and then put it back up again. We coordinate very well with them.
Speaking of geos, because I know you guys have been doing a lot of electric stuff, are you going to be working on something in the future, not with the, as I know Lisa mentioned something was really important too, and I just put a light bulb on. Are you soon going to be putting some new things up in the future? Any new things that you think is going to be good for accessibility?
So
In the stations?
We're actually working closely from an accessibility standpoint on each of the elevators and escalator stations that are going in to do advanced relocation of the wireless services so that during the construction period that there's limited to no outage on coverage. So we work very closely on advanced scheduling before the general contractor goes in to work on those so that we can do a relocation of that. And then once the elevators or escalators are completed, then we'll go in and do another survey of coverage and ensure that it's meeting all the coverage of the stations even after construction.
To what I'm adding is also because there is a committee here in MTA with Edith and I both on with these called the ACT committee, which I call the accessibility to the MTA. It is very important because if say they're doing a big, and I call them the supersized geos on the 7th Avenue line, we have to make sure we have accessible reroutes for people to go where they have to go because there could be more outages on those stations and people could be stranded, don't know where they're going. So I hope we can work on something like that in the near future, which we call accessible reroutes.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for inviting us.
And the map of coverage is on your website?
It shows our route on transitwireless.com where our fiber is located.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Thank
you
you
all.
again. I think we were continuing on new business. Matt, you were next.
24th,
He knows.
there is a hearing on subway elevator maintenance. People, we need to pack that courtroom because Judge Daniels is a tough cookie.
Mr. X.
I should have mentioned this earlier today, and I'm sorry I didn't. And it's regarding the Express F train. His way against my way. Since there are only 3 tracks on that line below Ditmas Avenue, my proposal was let some trains run express on the local tracks during rush hours only. I feel AM rush hour, the AM rush hour period should run between 6 and 10 a.m., not between 6 and 9 on business days. That's 4 hours, which is an even number. The PM, whereas the PM rush hour period should run between 4 and 8, not between 4 and 7 p.m., which is another 4-hour block, which is an even number. And I've always preferred even numbers over odd numbers since September 1977, which, as you know, was 42 years ago this month, but that's another story. Okay? And this is how it should be done. Leaving Church Avenue, go straight to the express stops only. 18th Avenue, Kings Highway, Neptune Avenue. You want to serve Brooklyn Aquarium Station, you can, but may not have to because it's close to Coney Island Station, and also Bergen Street Station, the lower level platforms, which, as you know, were used in Jacob's Ladder, 1990, Tim Robbins. Keep the tracks. Dismiss the platforms. You don't need the platforms. You need the tracks more than you need the platforms. Because without the platforms, the trains could still run express generally. So it's time for Dusty Roads to rebuild the tracks only, forget the damn platforms, and let trains run express from Willoughby Street Station, which is on J Street at Willoughby Street, not from Bergen Street, which is what they did in the past. So that means from Willoughby Street, run express to 7th Avenue, from there run express to Church Avenue, from there run express to 18th Avenue, from there run express to Kings Highway, from there run express to Neptune Avenue, serve Coney Island. As far as Brooklyn Aquarium Station goes, they don't necessarily have to serve it because it's close to Coney Island Station. And also, Brooklyn Aquarium Station, I mentioned this before, we have that unused track bed between there and Ocean Parkway, which was used by local trains. It was closed in 1954, the same year trains started operating below Church Avenue. It's time to rebuild that track bed and redesignate for local trains at all times. Okay? It's been trackless since 1954, the same year as Donald M. for murder. Are you serious? That's 65 years down the drain because certain individuals, like the current MTA executive, didn't use their heads. They need to use their heads.
Okay, well,
So you need to mention that to him
as far
at a
as
later time.
running
another
south
time.
of Church Avenue, I have advocated for express service, but it wouldn't be on the local track because the express would catch up to the local
no,
trains.
Andy,
It would
Andy,
be on the center track,
Andy, what I'm saying
like
is,
it used to be.
Andy, all you have to do is make announcements because they only run express during rush hour. So some trains will run express, other trains will run local. It'd be just
I know
a
what you're
flip-flop.
saying, but it can't be on the local track or you'll catch up to other local trains. It has to be on the express track.
Then all you need is a gap between them. That's all.
a hell of a gap then.
No, won't be a hell of a gap. What do you mean? All
Plus-
you have to do is
Plus,
one train
I don't wanna
every 5
prolong this,
minutes.
but my problem with the current F Express is that the neighborhoods of Windsor Terrace, Red Hook, Carroll Gardens, and Cobble Hill have grown tremendously since the F Express once ran. If you want to run it south of Church Avenue and have it stop on the middle track, mind you, in direction of predominant travel, southbound in PM, northbound in AM, have it stop from Church to 18th to Kings Highway to Neptune and do the rest to Coney Island. That makes fine sense to me. But bypassing all these neighborhoods, I mean, I could see what happened just last night. Hordes of people are waiting for the local.
Although, in my proposal, I said they should only use the middle track if either local track is out of commission. If the local tracks are fine, then it's no problem. But if they're out of commission, they use the express track.
I get it. Stuart?
We don't want to beat this into the ground, but what he's saying has some merit. And during the David Gunn years, when they were doing through-span girder work on the F line, they did what he was saying, and they
Yes.
ran skip stop, which was a sort of express during the morning and in the evening, depending on the peak direction of travel. So it has happened. But again, what I said before, it's a joke. There are only 4 designated express trains part of this initiative during the day.
It's a
That's
test.
not helping riders from southern Brooklyn.
Right. Remember, this is only a test. If this were an actual emergency. Edith.
Exactly.
After our experiences with the 1 and the 9, I never want to hear the word skip stop again.
Well, you got J and Z still.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, you know, I love standing downstairs at Fulton, and it's going A, C, E. And you get 3 E's, you get 2 C's, and you get no A. And
That's
you go,
a miracle if you get 2 C's.
I know, it was like, is that really a C? Is it in disguise? But yeah, I mean,
Yeah, the 1.9 was really doomed because the savings that you would realize from the skip stop was so much offset by the wait for one of those that it made no sense whatsoever.
also the problem was that you were on a 9, and it wasn't being a 9.
Right.
You know, and if you're getting on at, you know, like 231st, and then it's not doing, like, why am I bothering?
Exactly. Any other business? Yes.
Motion to adjourn.
No,
Oh.
yes, more business.
More business.
Edith, you go first.
Okay. There's been a real problem, and I don't know what I can't identify it, but on the ACE track, the A's downstairs at Fulton, the A's are overshooting the dam loading, the loading area by 2 cars. How in the world can you overshoot that by 2 cars? A set of doors, okay. But seriously, it was 2 cars yesterday that it was off by. And, you know, it's like then you're running, trying to get onto the train. We're going northbound on an A at Fulton. The first car must have been in the tunnel somewhere.
What car type was this?
No, okay, there was one new one, one old one. And I don't, you know, it just are they asleep at the wheel? No, because I can't see that.
Andrew, I put it in already.
Okay, good.
I can bounce with Edith because there's been complaints. One time, the driver on Edith's talking about the R179, he did shoot, but the way they're coming out from the tunnel, from whatever tunnel you want to call them, they come out way too they're coming out too slippery on the Cranberry Tunnel because that Cranberry is slipping and sliding. They're coming way too fast. They're not following their speed restrictions. No, it's actually the R46s. They're coming even worse. This is only the one time I saw the R179 came in a little too fast. But one thing I'll say this. The R46s, they do come in, and there's nothing in front. And let me tell you something. There's times there's another train in front of him. Why is he rushing if there's a train in front of you? There is concern of safety because there's been complaints with a lot of passengers. They are like waiting for an A, barely shows up. The C's actually run more than the A's. I'm on a C. And there was one time after we left the trip, a C train pulled in, but we beat the A all the way up north.
If you're saying that these trains are overshooting and the head car is in the tunnel, that means they're not opening doors on those head cars?
One set didn't. One set didn't do it. He actually just opened half of the right
that
side.
would be really dangerous if you were opening the car door.
He almost did.
In the tunnel.
Andrew,
In the
he almost
tunnel.
did, and I put that in.
Did you get a car number?
Of course I did. I told you I put it
Who
in.
did you send it to?
Debbie Morris, last month. I did tell you this. You said you would get back to us.
No, I don't.
Not you. I mean, I did get back, and they are investigating because they are supposed to. But this is getting kind of ridiculous the way they're coming out of that tunnel way too fast. Matt, please do not interrupt when I'm speaking to Andrew unless you have a question.
He's trying to add to this.
But it's not a sub.
Can we adjourn now?
I was going to say, we can talk about this after, but I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Yeah, oh, okay, that's what I've been trying to do.
Yeah.
Second.
Second. All right, then I guess we are adjourned. Thank you all.
Now